club. So that is going to be special for us tonight. Now, another one of my responsibilities as Toastmaster today is to introduce the theme. Without further ado, let's jump into that, shall we? Now, oftentimes in life, we'll get advice from friends or elders, and it'll just go right over our heads. And it's usually life that's our best teacher. It's those experiences. You have to experience it to truly understand it. I'm going to share with you tonight one of a life lesson that I have or had. It was a hard lesson to learn. And that lesson was about fiscal responsibility. Yes, we're going to talk about money. And money is a sensitive topic for some folks. I'm not here to say whether it's good or bad. I'm merely going to convince you that no matter how much you have or how little you have, you must treat it responsibly. Now, my story begins when I was about 10 years old. And this is going to resonate with Alessandro. Where I was helping my grandmother, my Italian grandmother, with chores around the house. She called to me from the other room, "Giovanni, come here. I got to talk to you." This heavy Italian accent. "Giovanni, you're such a nice boy. Thank you for helping your grandma today." And she'd pinch my cheeks. "Here's a $5. I want you to take a $1, go buy yourself a nice piece of candy. Then I want you to take the other $4, go stick it in the piggy bank. Save it for a rainy day. No spend, no spend. You see outside, Giovanni? It's a sunny today. But this old lady know one a day, it's gonna rain. That's why you need yourself an umbrella. Giovanni, this piggy bank is your umbrella. Capisce? You understand?" My Italian grandmother went through plenty of financial hardships in her life. She moved here, immigrated from Italy through the Great Depression. And if there was one person who could be speaking on this topic, she clearly was one. I just wished I would have listened to her. Fast forward about 15 years. I graduated in finance, and unlike my fellow alums in college, I did not go work for a financial institution. Instead, I worked in Chicago at the Chicago Board of Trade on the financial exchange. I was trading financial futures. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, there's a scene that kind of depicts fairly well what actually my job was. It was a very high risk, high reward type of a job. But what I found is that I was actually pretty good at it. And within a few years, I was making 5 times what my peers were making. Sounds pretty good in practice, doesn't it? Just one problem. I spent money and acted like a complete idiot. I spent money that I bought things I couldn't afford. I paid for things that with money that I thought I would get the following year. I bought expensive car, expensive clothes, you name it. I was the poster child of fiscal irresponsibility. And then, just like Grandma had predicted, it rained. I got caught basically on the wrong side of the market, and I had to sell everything that I owned in order to pay off creditors. I was as dead broke as broke could be. I was facing bankruptcy. I had to go home, hat in hand, to my parents to beg to move back in. I was nearly 30 years old. To say that I was disgusted and embarrassed are understatements. And I remember sitting there wallowing in my own guilt, staring at a portrait of Grandma, who is now my late grandmother, may she rest in peace, thinking, how could you have done this to yourself, John? Why did you not listen to Grandma? I vowed on that day that I was going to do whatever it took to learn personal finance. I consumed as much of the financial gurus. Think Dave Ramsey, think Susie Orman or Robert Kiyosaki. I consumed all of it. I learned a ton. It was a hard lesson. So tonight, in an effort to pass along and pay it forward, that lesson in fiscal responsibility, I'm going to pass along through the course of tonight's meeting 3 personal finance tips. They're nothing complicated. Hopefully, you'll just say, I already do that, John. And that would be great. That would make me happy. I'm not a financial advisor. That's just a topic that I'm very passionate about. And if I can convince one person to treat money a little bit more responsibly, I think it would make Grandma happy. But before I get into that, as promised, I want to go ahead and introduce a few of my fellow Toastmasters. They're going to help me up here to make this a successful meeting. Now, first up, serving hopefully to inspire us or provide a good joke, I would like to introduce, serving in the role as inspirational master / joke master, a member from our South Park Club, Toastmaster Debbie Turdinger.
Thank you, everyone. And my invocation really fits. I love the theme that we're sharing today. And I'm going to give you some tips that probably John's grandma would also give as well. And they're simple, and there's not many, but just listen, and they are short and sweet. And the first one is just set short and long-term goals for yourself. Create a budget. Educate yourself about money, as you said you did. Just continue to educate yourself. Live within your means. Build your savings. Pay off debt. Start investing, and then understand what your net worth is. So those are just some helpful tips. And now I've got a really bad joke for you. And it goes like this. What do a pelican, a vulture, and the IRS have in common? Any guesses? They all have big bills. So, bad joke, I know. But thank you. It's like a grade school joke.
Thank you, Toastmaster Debbie. You both provide some inspiration and made us laugh. Okay, you also stole my thunder. I'm going to have to dive a little deeper in some of your tips, but we'll get there. It's all good. So we also here at Toastmaster like to be mindful of our filler words, one of which I just used. So to help explain her role, please help me welcome also from our South Park Club. Welcome to the stage, Toastmaster Carla Sherry.
Thank you very much. The word of today is right in alignment with what we're talking about today. And you can use any form of it, but the word is accountability. And for those of you who are new or guest, or those of you who've been here a while, your goal today when you speak is to somehow fit in the word accountability, accountable. Accountability is the acceptance of responsibility for one's own actions. And it sounds like when you were about 30, you really accepted the responsibilities and dealt with the consequences. Financial accountability results from holding an individual accountable for effectively performing a financial activity. Maybe you didn't have your procedures and controls in place, but it sounds like you're going to tell us today what they are and how to do it. I would like to remind you, accountable, accountability, any version, you can even use accounting, I'll throw that one in. Any version of that word will count towards, will account. Oh, who knew? I will be accountable for where I stand next time. Will account for having gotten the correct word. And at that same time, I'm the grammarian. So I'll be looking for interesting uses of words, misuses of words and language. And I'll also be listening for ums, ahs, so's, all those filler words that make it so much easier for us to do what we don't want to do, I guess. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Toastmaster Carla. Let's be mindful of those filler words. Our grammarian will hold you accountable. Okay, next up, Here at Toastmasters, we like to be mindful of time. Time is money, as they say, and to share her responsibilities of her role serving as timer, please help me welcome Heather to the stage.
Thank you, John. Hello, friends. So for the timers report tonight, we have one speaker, and then we are going to have table topics and an evaluation. So to be personally accountable for managing the time as we are speakers up here, to have our personal accountability for respecting all of our time, we run a timers report. And so for the first speaker, it's an icebreaker. So it's going to be 4 to 6 minutes. So I'll highlight the green when he's at 4. So he will have an idea that he has 2 minutes left and we're all aware. And then yellow at 5 and red at 6. And then for table topics, it's 1 to 2 minutes. And it looks like we might have a lot of time to do table topics. So prepare if you would like to come up and have an opportunity to speak. It looks like we may have an opportunity for us to speak if you would like. And then for the evaluation, that is 2 to 3 minutes. So thank you, Eric. So Eric will do a demonstration. So for the evaluation at 2 minutes, I'm gonna highlight it at green. And then at 2.5 minutes, yellow, and then 3 minutes, red. So it's just an indication of time, so we can all respect our time. So thank you. I'll hand it back to John.
Thank you, Toastmaster Heather. Okay, well, you've met the fellow Toastmasters that are going to be serving and supporting roles tonight. I promised you before we kick it off to our first prepared speech of the evening, and only prepared speech of the evening, I'd like to share with you tip number 1, of which Debbie already alluded to. Or maybe she didn't. You covered a lot. But my first personal finance tip is fairly simple. And that is listen to grandma. Have yourself 3 to 6 months worth of a rainy day fund. Build it actively. Make a concerted effort to have it and keep it. And do not spend it unless it rains. Now, there was a 2019 study done by the Federal Reserve, and it revealed that 80% of American households live paycheck to paycheck. And of those 50%, of those surveyed, 50% could not handle an unexpected expense of more than $400. This is pretty dangerous. I know you don't always want to live paycheck to paycheck, and in this day and age with inflation, et cetera, that may not be possible to avoid. It's unavoidable. But you want to be disciplined about carving out that do whatever it takes. Be disciplined and save just a little bit a month until you keep building that up. And if you don't, living paycheck to paycheck is similar to a car that's operating at red line. When you look at the dashboard and you see that the engine is racing near that red line, it has 2 detrimental effects. One is over the short term, one is over the long term. Over the short term, the danger is you have one little misstep, one little malfunction within that engine, and it could break down, and or worse, you get into an accident. Over the long term, as a result of revving that engine and putting a heavy usage on that engine, it reduces its useful life. The same is true in your personal finances. If you live paycheck to paycheck and you have one unexpected expense, be it medical emergency or an unexpected home repair or a job loss, you are not in a position to recover. You end up taking out high cost loans, and that could push you into bankruptcy or even homelessness, for all we know, if that negative spiral continues. And then let's say you've avoided all of that. Let's say you were lucky enough to avoid those things. But over the long term, you've been worrying about having that same situation occur. That stress on you, the mental stress, can impact your physical well-being, which can reduce your useful life. Dr. Eric can talk to us about that. So as you can see, how much better at night would you sleep knowing that you had just that little bit of cushion to handle that unexpected outcome? If you would like to be financially responsible, have yourself a 3 to 6 month rainy day fund and do not spend it unless it rains. I'm going to share with a few more tips, but at this point in time, it's time to get to our main event. And that main event is special because it is our icebreaker. I would like everyone to please provide a warm welcome, giving his icebreaker tonight entitled Hurt But Not Harmed. That's right. Thank you for your help. Please help me welcome to the stage one of our newer Toastmasters, Dr. Matthew Skorheim.
Just like a quick PowerPoint slide. Do you have access to that? It's fine if you don't.
I'll have him look at it.
Yeah. No, it's not a big problem. Thank you, John. Well, thank you, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. My name is Matt Skorheim, and it's a pleasure to be here talking to everyone today. So what do you call 5 injuries, 3 MRIs, multiple doctor's appointments, 1 surgery, and multiple years of physical rehabilitation? Probably a big financial responsibility, but for me, it was a future career. So today I'm going to share my journey as a young man that eventually helped me build a strong physical, mental, and spiritual foundation and helped me shape me into the person that I am today. Also, these experiences have helped me give back to those who are in similar shoes that I once wore. And in joining Toastmasters, I look forward to expanding my message to a larger audience. So given that we're in the thick of football season, I think this story comes at an opportune time. This is where we'd have the slide, but I have a little bit of a timeline here, so it should be pretty straightforward. But the story starts in my 8th grade year, playing football. I go to block somebody. My finger jams into my pads and I break and dislocate my thumb. In 10th grade, playing football, playing defense, I strain my shoulder, and 2 MRIs later, I have a torn labrum. The following year, 11th grade year, playing football on defense, go to tackle somebody, this time in practice. And 1 MRI later, I have a torn PCL. So fast forward to college, decided football wasn't my thing. So collegiate basketball this time. My freshman year, after the season, I go up jump. My teammates and I are playing pickup together. I land on my teammate's foot and I severely sprained my ankle. And last but not least, my sophomore year of college, I land with my arm extended like that, hyperextend my elbow, and I tear my UCL or my Tommy John ligament. So if there's a category of injury prone or that's past injury prone, I think I'd be in that category. Sure, I might have had a few war stories, a few party tricks. Hey, look what my knee can do. But obviously it affected my psyche in a negative way and put a shroud over my long-term future. I'd wonder, would I be in and out of doctor appointments for the rest of my life? Would I be able to play with my kids and my nieces and nephews in the future? Or will I be able to continue doing the things that I love to do? Fortunately, I had a lot of great help along the way. From the athletic trainers who helped me out with the on-the-field care, to the orthopedic doctors who pointed me to the rehab process early, to the orthopedic surgeons who recommended conservative treatment first, and to the physical therapists who helped me regain my function, confidence, helped me stay accountable, and helped me get back onto the field or court. So I had an inclination early in my education that these past experiences would point me towards a career in the medical field. I was lucky that I only had to have 1 surgery, my shoulder, and I was able to rehab the rest of my injuries without surgery. So contrary to me thinking I would receive an honorary degree given my past, I completed my clinical doctorate in physical therapy in 2016. I completed and pursued a voluntary orthopedic residency in physical therapy in 2017, and I passed a board exam in orthopedic physical therapy in 2018. And today I'm working my 7th year as a physical therapist in an orthopedic setting. So call it a sign from the good man upstairs or fate. But I think the biggest attribute I gained beyond my professional training is the empathy of experiencing the ups and downs of being hurt. More often than not, my patients and clients expect the road to recovery to be linear, a straight path. In reality, this path is often 3 steps forward, 2 steps back before crossing the finish line. So I often will say I became a physical therapist first to help myself. After 2 years of collegiate basketball, half marathons, cross training, cycling, and more hikes than I can count, I totally changed my attitude that just because we sustain an injury doesn't mean we can't reach our goals. I truly believe that these experiences help me gain a better perspective and a fortified mindset that translates to many walks of life. So how many of you assumed your long-term potential after unexpected obstacle presented itself? So hurt can be a lot of different things. It can be finances, can be injuries, etc. But in my case, I can tell you firsthand that just because you got hurt doesn't mean you have to be hindered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. Hope it feels good. It's always good to get that first one done. A lot of personal satisfaction with that. And now I know where to go when I've got some back problems. Well, listen, I think we are due for a timers report. Toastmaster Heather, could you please provide that for us?
Excellent speech. Thank you. You did great, 5 minutes and 6 seconds. So I was a little fumbly over there, so into the speech. So well done.
Thank you, Toastmaster Heather. Okay, so if we were voting for you guests, if we were voting, usually we would qualify. So if you're within a certain time period, you would qualify and that speech would qualify. So good job, Matthew. Okay, before I kick things over to the second portion of tonight's meeting, we're going to get involved into some impromptu speaking. But before I do, I'm going to share with you the second personal finance tip, which I know Debbie highlighted, and that is to have a budget and stick to it. A 2018 study by the US Bank revealed that only 35% of Americans keep a budget. That means the great majority of us do not even know what is coming in and what is going out. How can you honestly know where you stand financially if you're not keeping track and measuring it? Now, one of the risks that occurs, like sometimes if you ask somebody, oh, I don't want to have a budget, it's too restrictive, I don't have the time. But you run the risk of breaking the cardinal sin, which is spending more than you make, living beyond your means. Think of it as Dave Ramsey says. Now, Dave Ramsey will highlight why it's so important to have a budget. And he's actually got a website called the Every Dollar app. There's also one called mint.com, which allows you to literally track each and every category so that you know how much you're spending and you can stay disciplined and follow that. But what Dave Ramsey suggests is so important about budgeting is that it prevents you from going beyond your means, spending money you have yet to earn. And the reason it's so risky for that potential to happen is we have a consumerist society. Think about when you just woke up this morning, you ordered up an Uber, you had your pumpkin spice latte waiting for you when you arrived at work, and then you decided to wave in on Amazon those shoes that you've been thinking about. And with 3 simple clicks of a button, you may have already spent next month's income. This is why Dave Ramsey's got a great quote. He says, a child will scream and cry for instant gratification, but an adult stays disciplined and sticks to the long-term plan. If you would like to be financially responsible, have a budget and stick to it. Now, without further ado, let's move on to our impromptu section of tonight's meeting. And to lead us in that effort, I'd like to introduce, I believe he's online, Toastmaster Sean Desai.
Thank you, John. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. We've heard a lot about fiscal responsibility, but these table topics are a bit different. It's going to be about fiscal irresponsibility. So let's have some fun, let your imagination run wild, and talk about all the ways you can spend some cash so you can push that accountability to the side. Now, John, can you help me elect or choose a guest or a member from the group today? Do we have any volunteers?
Would anyone like to volunteer for Sean's first question? Toastmaster Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, so here's a scenario. You're planning a trip to see the country and decide to rent a vehicle. The responsible side of you chooses an economic vehicle that saves gas. But the irresponsible side of you is looking at an RV, a sports car, or a large SUV that you can take off-road. What type of vehicle will the irresponsible you choose, and how was the trip?
Thank you, Toastmaster. Toastmaster, Topics Master. Now, before I moved back to North Carolina, my response would have been the sports car. See, while I was in Albany, New York, in the snow, I needed the SUV. So that's what I chose. However, when I came back to North Carolina, I decided I no longer needed that SUV. You're saying, why don't you need the SUV? Well, I don't go off road. It's just me and mom, or mom and I. And I decided I didn't need a car note. So it would have been irresponsible if I didn't hold myself accountable for keeping a car note for a vehicle I did not need. See, it had all this capacity for me to put all this stuff in from Amazon for 2 years while we sat at home and I was making money. And then I got laid off. And I realized why I was prompted to turn the car back in. So now I drive a Versa. It's fully paid for. It's small, but it still has the capacity to carry my dreams wherever I choose to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Do we have another volunteer? John Will may volunteer. He may volunteer.
Anyone else who does not have a role that might want to participate?
Is that
Sorry, what's your
Garrett?
name? Gary?
Garrett.
Garrett.
Yeah.
Sean, Garrett is your next participant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Here's your question. Here's the background. Your friends and family are traveling to Europe, and you're finding places to stay on Airbnb. As you're looking through the affordable places, you let your imagination go wild and choose the castles section. You find a modernized castle with a spa, big screen TV, Olympic-sized pool, and a vineyard. What would the irresponsible you choose, and how was the stay?
So the question was, what would the responsible me choose?
The irresponsible.
Responsible. Okay. Well, that's actually a funny question because currently my parents are in Europe, traveling and staying in Airbnb. So that's a very, relative question. So all the time you see all these castles on Instagram over there in Europe. And I, for one, am very cheap. For the last question, I drive a Toyota Camry LE hybrid. I mean, if it was up to me, I would definitely be driving a truck, but I'm a penny pincher. So I'm driving the most, affordable miles per gallon car I can get my hands on. So it would really be branching out to sort of spend more than what I want to. And a castle would definitely be one of those things. I, for one, have never even thought about how much it would cost to stay at a castle in Europe. That gives me anxiety even thinking about what it would cost to stay in a castle. But if it did have the draw of a vineyard right on the ocean, huge plaza, massive rooms, hopefully there's a pool table in there, you might be able to sway me to do it. I might be financially ruined for the next 6 months. So definitely for the next 6 months, I'd be thinking about how I didn't hold myself accountable and do the financially responsible decision. But if it's a once in a lifetime opportunity and a once in a lifetime trip, I'd probably have to do it. So thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Garrett.
Trying to see if we have any other volunteers, Sean. I know you've got more questions. We've got more participants. Right? Oh, okay. Dr. Matthew would like to spend more time up here.
As well. Thank you. All right,
All
Sean.
Dr. Matthew, great speech, by the way.
Thank you.
Your question. You haven't been to a concert in years. Your friends and family are in town, and so is your favorite band. You decide to splurge, get front row seats, along with a VIP package. Tell us about your VIP experience.
This is fitting. Thank you, Toastmaster Sean. So I don't know if anyone else was at the Elton John concert, but that was amazing. I haven't been to a concert in about 5 years. I put on a purple suit, I put on my purple shades, and I was rocking. But I think if I had to pick another person, he was up there. I'm a little bit old school. My mother was a music teacher, but more modernized, I'd say Pearl Jam. That's a band I've always wanted to see. I feel like there's some of these bands that are a little bit more towards the end of their career, so we have to snag them before they break up or they decide that they are a little bit over the tour life. So that would probably be my first one. A group that I definitely want to see in my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. There's still time. There's still questions. Okay, Debbie.
Okay, Debbie. You have 2 weeks off and are planning a trip. You check your bank account to see what you can afford. Then you take a look at your credit card and see what you can max out, how far you can max it out. Your credit card says you have about $100,000 to spend. Tell us how the irresponsible you spent those 2 weeks off.
Okay. Credit card is maxed out and I have 2 weeks off and I'm going to go on a trip. Is that right?
No, your credit card is not maxed out and you have the $100,000.
Sky is the limit.
Sky's the limit. You have a black card.
Okay. Well, I got 2 weeks off and I am going to go to New Zealand. I'm going to go there and I'm going to stop in Tahiti on the way. And I am going to just, do what I want. I'm going to eat where I want. I'm going to have fabulous food at great restaurants. I'm going to shop. I'm going to buy shoes I don't need. I'm going to just continue on my trip from Tahiti to New Zealand, and I'll travel all around both islands of New Zealand. And I'm not going to feel guilty. So I'm just going to have a great time and it'll be a chance of a lifetime that I will never forget, and it'll be worth it. And then I'll start to plan my way home, maybe go to Fiji on the way home and kind of repeat everything that I did and continue to eat and have fun and do sports and things like that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I highly suggest you visit the North Island in New Zealand. Do we have another volunteer? Or John, do we have time for another table topic?
We probably have time for at least one more, I think. Any guests want to give it a try? Looks like he would like to do it. What's your name? Steven, come on up, Steven. This is easy. Let's repeat the question. You can answer that question or any other question.
All right, Stephen, your question. Thank you for taking this topic. Congratulations. You won the North Carolina Powerball lottery, which is $420 million. What are you going to do with that?
So I think there's some tension between, do I want to hold myself accountable and responsible, invest that money in a high yield savings account, live off the interest? Or do I want to take the theme of the last question and travel around the world? I think the good thing here is that 400 something million dollars is enough that I could do both. And I could probably take all that money, put it in some sort of interest-bearing account, and use that to fund a fantastic trip around the world, including to New Zealand, which I've always wanted to go there because I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan and I want to see Hobbiton and all the places that they filmed for the movies. Thanks.
Excellent response, Stephen. Thank you. Next time in person, I'll share with you some screenshots that I took of Hobbiton. John, does that wrap it up?
Yes, sir.
Back over to you then. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in table topics this evening.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sean. Can we please get a timer's report, Heather?
Well, everybody did awesome. Table topics are my favorite. So everybody hit the 1 minute mark. You don't have to get to the red. I don't know if I didn't specify that. So just to get to the green is success. So that congratulations to everybody. So Andrea 136, Garrett 145, Matthew 101, Debbie 105, Stephen 121. So everyone is there. Yeah.
Thank you, Toastmaster Heather, for that timer's report. And thank you all for contributing, especially guest Stephen. Appreciate that. Okay, before we move on to our third and perhaps most important part of tonight's meeting, where we provide some constructive feedback on how we're doing, because that's, after all, why we are here. I'm going to share with you my third and final tip of personal finance. And that tip is to pay your future self first. Actively contribute toward your retirement by contributing at least 15% of your current income to 401ks and IRAs. Now, when I was growing up, my parents all had a easier lien when it came to retirement, and that lien was what they called a pension. Pensions don't exist as much. They do for some people, perhaps a government agency. But the beauty of the pensions was you really didn't have to think too hard about it. It'd be siphoned out of your paycheck, and when you retired, voila, this check would show up in the mail and retirement income. Congratulations. Now, perhaps this is something most people don't realize, you are now accountable for your own retirement. While you get the tax savings and et cetera, through 401ks and IRAs, it is your responsibility to make sure you have enough to have a comfortable retirement. Now, how many of you here have ever heard of the 4% rule? Does anyone know what the 4% rule is? Looks like we have one. Let me explain to you what the 4% rule, because this will be sobering. The 4% rule is something that actuarials and financial advisory have come up with as a formula. And it's a formula that states you cannot take out more than 4% of your total nest egg in retirement each year so as to not risk outliving your money. So let's do a little math here for a second. If you would like to live on $40,000 a year, that's $3,300 of pre-tax income per month. You would need to have in your nest egg, based on the 4% rule, wait for it, $1 million. $1 million. That sound a little bit daunting? It is, but I don't want to discourage you. There's always time to keep contributing and actively building your future retirement and paying your future selves first. That is why it's so important, particularly for you young folks, to start early and often. Maybe the next time, as a tip, maybe the next time you get a raise, instead of going out and buying that new watch or new pair of shoes that you like, perhaps bump up your retirement so that you get closer if you're not yet currently at that 15% minimum that I mentioned. If you would like to be financially responsible, pay your future self first, because you are now accountable. With that, let's move on to our final section of tonight's meeting. As I discussed, please help me welcome to stage, helping lead us in that effort, Dr. Eric Laxer, serving as our general advocate.
Thank you, Toastmaster John Cappello, for that kind introduction. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am Eric Laxer, and I will be serving as General Evaluator for our meeting today. Just for the benefit of our guests, we have multiple roles in meetings. It serves two purposes. One is it gives everybody who wants to an opportunity to come up and speak and work on their public speaking. And the second is we learn through evaluation. And evaluations are a very important part of every Toastmasters meeting. And so my role as General Evaluator is to coordinate the evaluation section of the meeting tonight. And I'm going to first start off by actually doing the evaluation for our speaker, Matthew Skorheim. I'm then going to ask for a timer's report on my own evaluation. And then I'm going to give a review and evaluation of the general meeting as a whole. And finally, we will conclude with our grammarian report we heard from Carla earlier this evening. So I would now like to give Matthew some feedback from his speech. Matthew, today was your icebreaker. For our guests, icebreaker is a very important speech that we give in Toastmasters. It's usually the first speech, and therefore it is called an icebreaker. And congratulations to you on two things. Number one, you joined Toastmasters. And number two, you gave an excellent icebreaker speech this evening. And those are two huge milestones on your journey to help improve areas of your life that could help you personally and professionally. And in doing so, I think you've added a way of being more accountable for your own actions in your life, something that all of us should be doing. So I'm going to focus on several things that I think you did really well. And then I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions of things that perhaps you can consider in the future if you feel like you want to make changes to your speech. The first thing I liked was your speech was very well organized. I loved how you started with a question, and then you gave us a little bit of a roadmap of where you were going to take us during your speech. And as a listener, I always find that very helpful. And not only did you start with a question, which was, so what do you call? And then you listed your health issues, but you also impromptu tied it into the theme today, because I saw you look over at John Cappello and say, well, you probably call that a big financial responsibility. And so I thought that was a very nice way of just interacting with the host and the theme of the meeting. So that was well done. The second thing I thought you did really well was you made your story and your speech very personal. You shared with us experiences that you went through in your life that ultimately had a major impact on your career path, led you to become a physical therapist. And I think when people tell stories and give speeches and talk about personal issues, it's a really strong way to connect with the audience. You connect with us and we connect with you. So I thought you did that extremely well. The third thing I thought you did well was you looked really comfortable up here. It didn't look like you were necessarily giving an icebreaker. And I think because of that, it was a great start to what will be some excellent speeches that you'll give to us in the future. Let me make a few simple suggestions, ways that I think you could consider maybe increasing the quality or value of your speech. One is to use pauses just a little bit more. I think they're a very useful tool in storytelling. And as an example, when you were talking about your injuries, had you said something like to the effect of, and I don't remember the exact injury you were referring to, but playing basketball and stuck my arm out and just pause. And I heard a pop, and emphasize that really well, because it gives the audience a little bit more of an anticipatory feeling in terms of, well, what's he going to say? What's going to happen? And for those of us writing notes, we usually look up and say, oh, this is really important. That's really the only thing I thought you could change in your speech. So let me end by once again congratulating you. I thought you did an outstanding job with your icebreaker speech today. I would now like to invite Toastmaster Heather to provide a timer's report on my evaluation.
Thank you, Eric. It was 3:21. Very good evaluation. Thank you. Very thorough.
Thank you, Heather. Excellent job to you too. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just provide an evaluation of the meeting, our meeting as a whole. And I'm going to start out with our president, Elvis. You did a great job getting the meeting started. And even beforehand, David usually is the one who sets the meeting up. He wasn't here. Elvis stepped in and really organized and coordinated everything tonight so that we could be here and have our meeting. So thank you. Our role players, Debbie, Inspirational Thought Master, Carla, Grammarian, Heather, Timer. I think you have done a great job explaining your roles because that is especially important. Carla, thank you for choosing the word of the day and also stepping up at the last minute, as well as Heather, to participate in roles that we needed this evening. And Sean, thank you for being prepared with multiple questions for table topics. I thought they were all really good because they were relevant to the meeting. And just a couple words regarding our Toastmaster of the day, John. John, you never disappoint. You're always inspirational. You prepare incredibly well. And every time you come up here on stage, I learned so many things about how well you speak, how to control the room, how to control the audience, just how to manage the stage. And just a little thing for those of you who haven't been Toastmasters yet, one of the rules we like to stick to is when you're the Toastmaster, you control this part of the room and you never leave it unattended. And so if you noticed when he would introduce somebody, he would stand here, he'd wait for us to come up, he'd shake our hand. That was a very important interaction. He'd hand the microphone and just make sure we had everything we needed up here. The other thing that you did that people didn't get to see is before the meeting, you showed up early, you checked out how the room was set up, You made sure all the roles were filled. There were some people who came who were fulfilling roles that you didn't know. You introduced yourself to them. You made sure that everything was set ahead of time for the meeting to go smoothly. And that was really exceptional. So thank you very much for doing it that way. And finally, I love the simplicity of your message. Here's what I took out of it. Listen to grandma, have a budget and stick to it, and pay your future self first. And I'm going to share this with as many people as I can, probably over the next 2 or 3 weeks. With that, I would like to now call upon Carla, our grammarian, to provide her grammarian report. Please join me in welcoming her up to the front of the room.
That's good enough. Well, thank you all very much for allowing me to do this. Everybody did great, and everybody has opportunity for improvement. First of all, on the accountability or accountable, I counted, besides myself, Heather, Matthew, Andrea, Stephen, and John all used the words. If I missed anybody, I apologize. Did I miss someone? Oh, and Eric. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have, this is a very good role for you next time. I would say that it is one of the most used words I've ever seen for a word of the day. Usually 1 or 2 people remember it. So very successful there. Today was a day of so's, ums, and ahs. I'm not going to point anybody out, but there were quite a few of you. With that said, buts, oh, I have to ask you, are you from Canada? Oh, because you used the one I think of A. So there were a few A's from you that not but that A sound. So yeah, I caught that. With that in mind, let me just say there were some great phrases used today. For those of you who don't know the word labrum, I recommend you look it up. My kid tore one from football too in 10th grade. Hyperextended. I love the shroud over. You used the word shroud over. So that was a really good use of words, Matthew. I have lots of other words that were used that were interesting. Let me see if I can find them. John, you used detrimental and cardinal sin in talking about financials. I thought that was interesting. The best expression of the day I heard from Andrea was carrying my dreams wherever I choose to go. I thought that was really a good way to say things. Probably a lot of other ones. Overall, great grammar day, great opportunity to learn. I say, but, you know, all the time, and I'm going to work on that. And I use and. I could have said, I say, but, no, I'm going to work on that. We add a lot of ands in the speech, and we really don't need to do that. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Carla. That concludes the evaluation portion of our meeting. I will now turn the table back to our Toastmaster, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eric. Appreciate all that valuable feedback. Hope everyone else did too. That's why we're here after all. We're here to get better. I hope as a result of tonight's meeting and this theme that you will not have to learn the hard way, as I did, of treating money responsibly. To recap, as Eric did, the 3 tips: listen to grandma, have your savings 3 to 6 months, have a budget and stick to it, actively contribute towards your retirement. Now, will those 3 things solve all your financial problems? No, they will not. But I think if you follow them, you'll be well on your way to being more financially responsible. Think how much better it will be, how much sounder you will sleep, knowing that you have a little bit of cushion and you are treating money that much more responsibly. And at the very least, probably most importantly, if you do listen to these things, just think of who's watching above. You will put a smile on Grandma Cappello's face. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to turn things back over to our current president, Elvis Lopez.
Thank you, John, and please help me with another round of applause for our Toastmaster of the day. Excellent job. And now I would like to recognize one of our newest members. Please come up here, Garrett. Welcome to Queen City Toastmasters. And one more time, I would like to pass the mic on to our guests to give us your last impression about the meeting overall. So I will start with this side here. Alessandro.
It was a great experience. I enjoyed listening your speech. You share your personal life experience, and that was great. And what about the nonna? The nonna is always right, you know, all the advisors. So thank you very much. As I said, it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you. I as well, I did it. I had a great experience. I have one club that I can compare it to. But this one, I think there's a good emphasis between, or a good balance that's struck between the formality and sort of sticking to the ritual while also not having it being overly constricting and making people feel comfortable. So obviously I felt comfortable enough to go up and do a 1 to 2 minute tabletop. So thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro and Stephen. Carla?
Thank you for having us. And please feel free to come to your sister club. We meet on Mondays at the library in South Park, except for the next 2 Mondays because of elections. We will be meeting upstairs or remotely.
The 17th, we meet upstairs, and then after that, we're.
Yes, no, we're going to go back to, we're hybrid Zoom and like you all, but 17th we'll meet at the library upstairs. And then for 2 weeks, we will not meet except for on Zoom, and then we'll go back to hybrid. Thank you.
And that's at the South Park Library, Mondays at noon. Carnegie.
I think you're all an awesome group, and you support each other, and you're so welcoming to anybody that's new. And I enjoyed hearing your first speech. I thought it was a fabulous first speech. And I just, it makes me realize why people like Toastmasters, because everybody is there to support everybody, and that's what it's about. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And now we will give the microphone back to Elvis.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks again, all of our members, our guests. Please come visit us again, or please join us. We meet every Tuesday, and if there is no other information from our officers, I would like to officially call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.